Welcome to the Dad Hammer Podcast, a casual Warhammer show where we discuss all things 40k, Age of Sigmar, and literally everything else Warhammer related. So whether you are a beginner, a seasoned veteran, we are so glad that you joined us. Very difficult to get out the opening, even though I've done it a million times. We're so glad that you joined us on your Warhammer journey. I am your host, David the Warboss, and I am joined by my friends, Mr. Medicae, Steve.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, and the Chaplain.
Yeah, it's good to be back again.
We're here. Yeah. We took a little break. We had to take a little break, and even podcasters, podcast hosts, podcast panels need a little break.
People.
We got it. That makes us sound weird. Well, maybe we are, but
we are weird.
Pod people.
Pod people.
We're a bunch of old guys on a podcast talking about games with toy soldiers. So that's not weird, right?
Yeah.
No,
not in my world.
No, not at all. Well, for everyone listening and viewing us on YouTube, I really appreciate it. It's very, very great to have you joining us again. Wanted to start the show with a shout out here first on a review that was left recently on Apple Podcast by No Brainer 774, and I love the username, by the way. Mm-hmm. But if you're not aware, please, it really helps us out. I love to see the reviews on Apple Podcast or on YouTube, Spotify, wherever you want to choose to listen. But I want to read this review off because I really liked it. Started off 5 stars. Great job. This show is the highlight of my work week. I look forward to the positive outlook this show brings to the 40K community. David and his crew have been a great inspiration for me to create my own podcast. Keep up the good work. So, No Brainer 774, first of all, thank you very much. I would love to know what podcasts that you started, even if it's not Warhammer related. Maybe it's about, puppies or how to build sandboxes. Or I talked to someone at my work the other day, and their podcast was reviewing Hallmark Christmas movies.
Oh,
really?
Okay. There's an audience for everything, I mean,
yeah, man.
Why not? Yeah, I mean, that's where we started. Steve and I were like, hey, what if we recorded when we talked about Warhammer? And that's how this started. That was it. That's the premise. So anyway, No Brainer 774, thank you so much for the review. Remember, if you would like to have your review read on the podcast, please feel free to put that into Apple Podcasts. It's probably the best place to do it, but we'd love to see your comments anywhere. And then, of course, send us an email to contact@dadhammerstudios.com. We'd love to hear from you there as well. All right. Now, we did one shout out. We want to do one more. And Lee, I would like to turn it over to you. We've got a special shout out to send to one of our most devout listeners.
Yeah. So one of our youngest members takes time listening to the podcast with his dad. So we've been watching, obviously, on Instagram, just how he's been painting stuff, going to tournaments, playing a doubles tournament with his dad as well, Lord of the Rings. And then also hearing how he is consistently beating his dad. So this is a shout out to Jonathan. Happy birthday, Jonathan. We are so thankful that you listen along with your dad, and keep teaching War Machine how to play, because we heard that he doesn't know the rules, and you are the one that knows the rules. So well done, sir. Keep up the good work, and happy birthday, Jonathan. It's good to know you're part of the Dad Hammer team.
Yeah. Happy birthday, dude.
Happy birthday, Jonathan. And I do love the fact that Jonathan is continuing to beat his dad in the game that his dad probably taught him. I think that's the best, right? As parents, is when your children can take over and beat you at your own game. I remember when my oldest son, he's now 16, but he's challenging me to Mario Kart or Smash Brothers or something like that when he was younger, and I'm like, okay, buddy, I grew up playing Mario Kart, completely destroyed him, no mercy. And then fast forward about 2 or 3 years when he was maybe 12, 13, and then I'm like, oh man, now I got to really try. And then when he hit about 14, so it's neck and neck, and so I think it's awesome when your kids, when the student becomes the master. This is awesome. So
I'll tell you what you may like as well. I think Jonathan is jumping into 40K, but he has gone with Leagues of Votan. So
Mm.
looking on Instagram, that's what they're painting right now. So so we may like give him a minus, for that, like
What?
minus 2 points
What?
or something. Because
No. Sorry.
Sounds
Yeah.
like
Here's
somebody's a
how
bad
this works.
influence.
Jonathan, if Lee and Steve give you the negatives on choosing the Leagues of Votan, since I'm the host, I'm like one of those in the what's that ESPN show where they give points. I'm just going to give you plus 12 points arbitrarily. But you're going to get the negatives from these guys. But Votan, best army, right next to orcs. But All right. Well, we have a ton of stuff to talk about on the show today, along with a little special feature that I'm very excited about. We're, of course, going to tackle some news. We've got mostly Age of Sigmar news coming at you. That's where, man, the new edition is upon us, but it's trickling in. There's not a lot. There's some faction focus here and there, but we've got a few things to discuss. And additionally, we had a viewer question that we're going to address that is 40K related, all about charging tactics. We had one of our viewers on YouTube ask us for some tips and tricks on the best way to charge, to take advantage of charges. There's all kinds of stuff out there around this, but wanted to give you our take on it from the Dad Hammer team. I do a lot of charging as an orc player, so I'm very excited. It's the best phase, right next to the fight phase. We'll be talking about that. And then our special feature that we're going to do is a choose your own adventure, but 40K style. So using the powers of Chat GPT, I thought it would be cool if we did a Chat GPT special with choose your own adventure, where I'm going to read off a narrative. And I put in my own little flavor, of course, but we're going to read off a story and then have the panel here go through it and make choices, and we'll see how that goes. We've even got some background music to spice it up a little bit. So exciting. All right. Before we get into all of that, lots to cover, but let's get into our pile of potential. I will start with the Chaplain on whether or not you have made, jury's out, did you make progress on your pile of potential, sir? And I think I know most of the answer here, but I want to hear the full story on how much you actually did achieve.
All right. So about 2 podcasts back, I talked about the tray. I don't know if I talked to you about, if anyone remembers this, but this idea that, like, if I could have all the paints and everything on this tray, I'll be good to go at any point. Like, so there's no worried about picking the right paints or whatever. It's all there. It's just a matter of sitting down, switching on the light, and away you go. So just started, and I have made a really, really good dent on, on my pile of potential. Finally decided to go with Dark Angels as the chosen Space Marine chapter.
For now. How many times have you switched? How many times have you switched?
I did Ultramarines at the start, and then I did Salamanders at the start, but there wasn't enough characters. So then I went to Ultramarines, and then I was like, I don't know if I like these. And then I finally dabbled with Raptors.
That's right.
And then.
But just to be clear, as much as you love painting, you've done alcohol bath for all these models every single time, right?
Yeah. Taking them back to plastic God. And then started up. But I think ultimately it came down to I wanted an army that was green. I liked the color green, and then just back and forth, and then it was like the Salamanders. Oh, well, they're the good guys. I should go with those. And then I was like, and then so just decided, like, hey, let me go with Dark Angels, and let's paint them in a kind of not so much the Games Workshop green with the moot green like highlights, more of a kind of a bluey-ish green grimdark feel, and just kind of hit the ground running, using the purple undertones with the green, which really helped complement to give it that kind of gritty feel. So I had my tray ready, had the light, and I was literally cooking. So like Walter White, I was churning things out. So I did the 5-man squad of Inferno Marines. So I think that's what they're called. Are they? Or was that a dance move? The Disco Inferno Marines. Showing my age now.
It's close enough. Inferno Squad, right?
Inferno Squad. I don't know. Yeah. 5
close
units.
enough. That's fine.
So I did 5 of those, and then I jumped on to Stern Guards. So there's the 5 Stern Guards from Leviathan. I painted those, and then I was like, "Woo, here we go!" And then I jumped in and I did the Deathwing Terminators portion of that, and that did them in the bone color. And then I jumped onto a Dreadnought, and I was like, "Can you paint a Deathwing Dreadnought?" I don't know, but
Of course you can.
let's give it a go. So that is done. And then I was
Cool.
like, one night I was like, all right, I'm gonna challenge myself, and I'm gonna take a character model, and I'm gonna see if I can paint it, in a night using the style that I was doing. So I actually got 95% completed, and then I was getting so tired. I was like, I don't think I can see anything like that.
I didn't hear no bell.
But yeah, this is where I got to. I think we've got a picture of where he's at.
Yeah, here we go.
Yeah,
we'll go full screen on this guy.
So
Very
what
cool.
It's got how I actually did the armor was actually I stippled that on and built
This
that
is the Biologus.
Yeah.
What is it? I can't remember the full name, but I just remember Biologus.
Yeah. So but yeah, so basically started off with the black, then did the purple and black, and then kind of stippled up through that, and then obviously used the red of the of the other Marines to tie it together. And then I didn't use streaking grime on this. I've got a Tamiya panel wash, and I kind of just went a little bit more aggressive. So it started off as pin washing, and then I just kind of decided just to tap it on all over.
Yeah, it looks good, man.
So that just needs some more highlights, and then we can call that done. I think where I'm at right now,
Looks
which
good.
is I'm struggling with, and I've got to come up with I've got all these models that are painted, but they're not based. So it's trying to decide on what the base looks like, because the base is going to help complement the mini. So that's always a difficult one.
Yeah, I read somewhere, because I always struggle with trying to get my backlog, my pile of potential moving forward. Usually once you start to get some of the details on, it becomes a lot easier. You see the finish line. But I read somewhere, you mentioned basing, so I just thought maybe this would help, especially listeners that are new players, maybe some that struggle like me to get pile of potential painted. I read that if you can get the base coats on your model, or just base stuff, no highlights, no details, just get the base coat painted and then paint your base. Like I'm talking with flock and all the highlights and skulls or whatever else you want to put on there, and get it fully completed, paint the rim of the base, all of that, get it done, even though the model only has maybe base layers on it. Because, and I've noticed this myself, once you get the base done, completed, it almost looks like, oh man, this is almost ready to put on the table. Because that's like usually the final touches is the base, right? But when you get that done first and you got the rest of it to go, just gives you more of a, man, the finish line is there in front of me kind of thing. So just as an important tip, something that I've learned. But yeah, so Lee, I think this model looks great. Keep us posted on your progress, especially if you take out another, I don't know, 40 models. Sounds like you're on pace to do. So we'll keep us updated. I want to showcase. So Steve, I'm going to go next here because I've got one picture. I didn't have a whole tray, but I got one. So this is a picture I took very quickly just to put up here. This is a Knight Relictor. Everything is Stormcast for me right now as I'm getting ready for fourth edition of Age of Sigmar. So this guy was okay. It's not he wasn't a ton of fun to paint. I mean, it's I like the blue. I think that's probably my favorite part of painting these models, is because the gold, it's kind of all right. I get that. I get the highlights. Yeah. I'm done with this. But then it's the blue for me that makes it more entertaining, more fun, that makes it pop. So I enjoyed painting this. I've also got some Annihilators from the Stormcast. And for those that are not Age of Sigmar players, Annihilators are kind of like your Stormcast Terminators, Age of
Okay.
Sigmar. So they're very beefy, chunky guys. I'm almost done with those, but not completely. So more to come there. Steve, on to you.
Yes.
Have you painted 50 models like Lee?
No. I've definitely, without a doubt, put together and primed 50 models.
Hey, there
Yeah,
we go.
plus. But I'm like, I kind of holding off on the assembly part now, and I had to get back to painting. I think I talked about that before. But my 1980s Terminator movie style Necrons are coming along nicely. I'm hoping this will show up. But I'm doing like this really bright chrome
Yeah,
look to
that's
them.
good.
This is what's it, Emotech Stormlord?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a bunch of those base coated in that chrome paint. So I'll get to the details maybe this year. We'll see. But I started
No
painting on
promises.
my wife's Sisters of Battle Combat Patrol box, and this is one of the Arco flatulence,
Oh
really
yeah.
gruesome looking thing. But I went to town with the like the villainy inks stuff,
Mm.
so you can
Nice.
this
Yeah,
is
I'll
not
see
a
that.
great shot of it,
Yeah,
but
that's all right.
that stuff is amazing. I can't recommend that product enough. They have a really nice line of enamel inks,
Mm.
which are like nothing else on the market. So
Mhm.
they give you, if you like streaking grime and you want to spend a little time learning how to use these are artist grade kind of stuff. Man, it is some amazing stuff. And then I got some monsters that I'm starting to put together, some bigger figures for my Slaves of Darkness stuff. So this is
Whoa, look at that one.
the Myrmidon.
Minotaur guy.
Yeah,
What is
he's
that?
he's the Ogroid
Oh,
Myrmidon.
wait a minute. Is this the one that you actually put like weird
Real hair.
hair on?
Yeah, this is like polyester craft fur. So I did put some
Oh.
hair on that one. Yeah.
You've not got.
So
Lee said real hair. Like that just makes me feel creepy. Like
I thought
this.
I thought you were going to put
The,
Stu's beard on it. I thought that's what you were
oh,
joking
uh,
about.
that might work actually.
no,
Um,
no, no. Yeah, I know, right? I don't want to think. Makes me not want to play Warhammer.
I know it puts the
Oh.
lotion on the skin.
Yeah, you got to
Um,
wear gloves. You got to wear
right.
gloves now when you play
This has become
Warhammer.
a hazmat.
No, those look good, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So I'm moving along pretty good and getting
Cool.
back on the paintbrushes and stuff. So that's a good feeling.
So I have a question for David, and so you put on your Sigmar models Steel
Mhm.
Legion drab on the base.
Yeah.
Is there a reason for that? Because that's what I see quite a lot. As I see a lot of Sigmar people,
Mhm.
will put Steel Legion drab around the base, and
Yeah.
and then on 40k it's a bad and black.
Well,
I just
because I think for me the Age of Sigmar models, I think of making they're already on a planet. They're not making planet fall. They're not in it's a fantasy game, so it's rolling hills and mountains and forests and things like that. So when I tried, I put on black, I did a gray, I did different things with the Stormcast models, and I just went with the Steel Legion drab because the brown is more of a earthy look to it. I did it for Skaven, I've done it for the Stormcast, and I think it fits with the fantasy theme to me.
Mhm.
And when I think 40k, I think spaceships and getting on the deck and drop pods and crushing down, and so it's a lot of metal and
Metal, yeah.
industrial.
Yeah.
So to me, is the grim dark future. So the grim dark base, versus Age of Sigmar is more dirt, earth.
Mhm.
So I mean that's just what I went with. So
Yeah.
who knows?
I
No,
like that.
it's just
Yeah.
interesting. There are lots of conversations about it, and I just wondered.
Lots
I
of
was like, oh.
choices. Yeah. Well, cool. So I'm hoping to make some more progress. I got to get my annihilators done, but again, that's just going to be more. I don't want to make it sound boring because I actually like the look of Stormcast Eternals with the gold, a very very regal Flash Gordon almost reminded me of. So I my pile of potential I think is going to look good. Depending on whether or not you like a lot of gold armored guys, but we'll be updating this more in the future for sure. All right, now let's get into some news. Everything has been Age of Sigmar related, but I want to hit just on a couple things because I want to get into our listener question about charging with 40K. Um, I'm going to pull up the one of the videos that they showed off was this new primer on the Skaven with, as told by Callus and Toll, which are these two individuals. I don't know. I mean, I remember watching one of the videos on Warhammer Plus, which was really, I really enjoyed that series. If they ever decide to release another animation ever again on Warhammer Plus, that would be really exciting. But these two guys, I liked their storyline. I think the last time they did something Skaven-y on Warhammer Plus, if I remember right. So now they're doing a continuation, and I watched some of the video, which is giving you a bit of a summary on who the Skaven are, what they do, why everybody doesn't like them, but I guess every faction would say that about another faction. But I thought this was a somewhat humorous take on the content. I liked that they had this map that they unfolded, and I've got a couple screenshots here. This is not really a spoiler, I guess, since it's only like an 8-minute video, but they had a really cool map, and I'm like, man, I want my maps to unfold like that. I haven't used a map in a very long time, but if I had one like this, it would be really cool. It was like 2 pieces of metal that he put on the board, and then he like fans them out, and it looks like a window shade, and then it just like a Venetian blind kind of thing, and then it just like automatically folds together and makes a complete screen. I'm like, I want every piece of paper that I put on a table, I want to do that. It just looked a really cool entrance for no reason whatsoever, honestly, but it's okay. It looked cool. I liked this. Steve, I know you got to check it out. As I'm a Skaven player. I've read the lore, all of that. What were your thoughts on the video? Any interesting tidbits that you didn't know about Skaven before?
It was very informative, man. I didn't really know about it. I didn't really understand that. I thought the gnaw holes were just, I don't know, like teleportation things that they walk in and walk out of. But I didn't realize that they kind of live in
Yeah.
In a parallel. Like the Skaven will just sort of, they live and they scheme, and I thought it was really cool that I didn't realize that the warp stone, they actually corrupt it in a way, but in and of itself, it's not a corrupted item. So they do something to it to make it, I don't know, more evil and ratty. And then use it to further corrupt the landscape and all that stuff. And I thought it was really cool the way the animation and the cartoon talked about, like, oh, if you have friends over there, they're dead. Just don't bother writing, don't bother calling, because they're not there. And I was like, wow, it's really kind of a big deal. I just thought they were just kind of annoying, like, rats like we see them. But they
Right.
really like planned way ahead. They played a long game. And I was like, I wasn't expecting that. And it was really cool.
Yeah, I think there is, and I've had several conversations. We've got on Discord, and I talked to some other groups, and whenever I mention Age of Sigmar, it was like, I don't care. I just want to go back to 40K. I think, our listeners, you're missing out if you're not getting into Age of Sigmar. Yes, it's another game. Yes, it's more models, and maybe you're all machine guns and grimdark, and that's fine. There's just a lot of cool stuff in Age of Sigmar. I think getting dipping your toe into it, just with the spearhead boxes, are a perfect time to do that. Just like with Combat Patrol, but it's a really fun game, and I think the lore is really good. And I'll say again, I've made this point multiple times, but the missions that the battle packs, battle plans, I think, have so much variety to them. They're not just go get these objectives and hold them for 3 rounds, or you get 5 points instead of 10 points like they do in 40K a lot. By the way, the multiplayer missions in that were in White Dwarf for Combat Patrol for 40K, like, they have so much variety, so much cool stuff. We played a mission recently that had it was like a Fortnite bubble, dropping in, and the bubble shrinks, and so you got to get closer to the middle. A really cool game. And I wish they would do that all the time. But Age of Sigmar has a lot of that mission variety. So just another shout out to Age of Sigmar. I mean, I really think it's a cool game and worth looking into. Lee, I know you're kind of on the outside looking in for Age of Sigmar, but they've shown off a lot of this faction focus stuff recently, and it's the same kind of thing that they've done for 40K when they're coming out with a new edition. They I guess trickle in a little bit of information about each faction. So if you're considering getting into Age of Sigmar and you're not sure which army to pick, a lot of times these things are really good. And I got a couple of pictures here. These are the Fire Slayers, the dwarves, the shirtless dwarves, and then these the Idoneth Deepkin, the fish people. I always thought the colors of the armies look really cool. But Lee, my question, really for you is, when you look at this faction focus stuff and you see some of the models, I think one thing that I noticed, and you and I have talked about this before, we always get really excited when they release new models as part of a faction focus, that there's no new models. Like, they're showing all these faction focus things, but they come out with this, Seraphon, for example. I know we had a box that you were very excited about in the past, but they come out with this stuff. We haven't heard anything about the Overlords, the Flesh Eater Courts, or Night Haunt, and where's the new stuff associated with these models? So my question, when you saw the faction focus, were you looking forward? Were you looking for the new models? Was it like a hide and seek, looking for that kind of stuff, or were you like, I don't have time to paint these guys anyway?
I mean, to be honest, I haven't looked at any of those factions that have come through, because they're not the armies that I have right now. Seraphon and Sylvaneth is where I'm at, so I was waiting for those to drop, but then obviously, because I don't know if they're coming out in alphabetical order, or they just don't want those to come out yet.
Yeah.
So it hasn't really caught my eye in the way that maybe 40K caught my eye. But I will say this: when the 40K Combat Patrol came out, I was still pretty new in the game, so there was an excitement to kind of check out, okay, which is going to be my army. Because I already have some Sigmar models that I've not played, I'm not planning on going out and buying any, and so I'm not overly looking for new models, because I want to kind of get through my pile of potential before I purchase any more, unless someone buys them for me. So it's like
wink, wink.
So
hint, hint.
Yeah. Father's Day's coming.
There you go.
So, but no, there's nothing that's really jumped out. I tell you what, I did like from I think it was in the Callous and Toll, where they talked a little bit about the realm gates that they kind of people come through and then they battle. That sounded cool to me. Like this idea of, I recently watched Warcraft on Amazon.
The movie?
Yeah.
I heard that was really bad. I haven't watched it.
Hey, that was a bit weird, but this idea of like the orc army coming through the gate to then battle against humans, or humies as they are fondly known by orc people. But I like that idea of these realms and how the realms overlap and they kind of spill in and stuff. So that kind of got me a little bit like, oh, that sounds cool. But no models. I think what you're going to find is that they're going to try and get this stuff out, and then they're going to kind of then drip feed new models in here and there along the journey. I think that's what they're probably going to do.
Yeah, but the only thing is, when they show off the factions and they have a lot of the pictures that are no doubt coming from the battle tomes, codex, the books, the faction books, when they show that stuff off, usually that's a sign of it's complete, it's done. And if they have new models to release, they'll do that, or they just won't show any pictures at all. They'll say, hey, it's coming, and then when like what they did with orcs, they had a big mech, but you didn't really see any wide sweeping pictures of the army until they had revealed the new model. So maybe I'm reading too much into this, but I just think that whenever you come out with a new edition and you're doing a new faction, every army needs at least one. Give them something, anything to get excited about. Because if you're coming from the previous edition of Age of Sigmar, 40K or whatever, and there's a new edition coming out. You're like, wow, cool! I can't wait to use all these models. But you know that there's some that have been around since like 20 years ago that really need an update. And I think that I don't, as an orc player, I don't feel like there's not a gap. There's tons of models. There's just tons and tons of models that I could get. But I think even the Big Mac, like I would have liked to have seen a Stompa, of course. But when they showed off the Big Mac, like, okay, well, there's at least something for me to get excited about. I just think they missed a little bit. Steve, I mean, are you feeling that way? I know getting into Sigmar, were you looking for? I mean, you got plenty of stuff with Slaves to Darkness, but are you feeling the same way about these faction focuses, or am I the only one?
No, a little bit. I mean, I see what you're saying, because right now the spearhead boxes minus maybe the Cities of Sigmar look like just kind of repackaged stuff that's already out there. But I feel like it wasn't too long ago that we were talking about a bunch of new Sigmar releases. Like I feel like maybe it's just a handful of podcasts back. We talked about some of those characters, the Trogoths and the Sylvaneth and other stuff like that. So it feels I kind of as you presented that question earlier when I was looking through the stuff, I thought about I was like, well, there have been some updated models within the last year. So I could almost give them a pass on that. I don't like this like rebranding boxes of the same models that are out there, just kind of repackaging them and calling them something else. I would like to see new stuff as they come out with that. And but I'm definitely kind of on a wait and see. The big box is the thing right now. So
I wish they would have
once that
had
clears.
maybe in the faction focus articles. I wish they would have maybe said, "Hey, remember 6 months ago, or whatever, when we released this new model? This just came out," and have a link or something where they announced it. That would have been cool because I mean, my memory's terrible. I don't remember half the stuff that they released, and so a little reminder. So maybe this is just an old guy thing, and I just don't remember what they released. Now, fair enough, but regardless, I think, at least for me, I'm probably the most excited of our group, other than Stu, who's not on the show tonight. I'm very excited about Age of Sigmar 4th edition, but I'm also pretty easily entertained, So a new edition, new things for me to buy, a new excuse. Plus, the launch box is the only 2 armies that I play in Age of Sigmar, so it's kind of
hilarious.
It's lined up for me really, really nicely. But I'm excited. I know I am going to pre-order whenever that. I'm thinking it's going to be in the next couple of weeks when they announce when the pre-order comes out, and then I take my my launch box to Florida with me, so I have something to do when it rains. That's my plan when we go on family vacation.
You watch it; it'll launch on your way to Florida, and you'll be like,
exactly, yeah. We're cutting the vacation short, turning around. And then I'll never be seen again.
Yeah. True story.
Well, so not a lot of news this week, but that's okay because we have a viewer/listener question to get to, and it's a really, really important one that I think that sometimes there's a lot of good videos out there. A friend of the show, Stephen Box, even had some content within a recent White Dwarf magazine about it. But we had a viewer, and I'm going to go for the on YouTube at BW-Commander has put in a question in response to one of our latest podcasts. He said that he used, I'm not going to say it out loud just in case it activates someone's virtual assistant, but the one from Amazon, he asked it to play a podcast for him, and the Dad Hammer podcast popped up. So there you go. And he started listening to it and said, "Hey, new player is working on trying to figure out how to best do some charges." And we get a lot of questions around this kind of stuff frequently, mostly around just nuance for the rules. But I'm going to read off the question verbatim here. It said, "I would like to know what I should be focusing on when charging, because I had loads of models to charge with, but I was just sending them up hoping for the best." And we've all been there. I know that whenever you have a melee army or anything that even remotely resembles something with a sword or something deadly in its hand. You're like, oh man, I got to get him into melee. And then you find out, man, there's a lot of nuance that goes into charging. Because if you're a new player and you haven't, or maybe you're just getting into it, the charge phase is right before the fight phase. So in order to get into combat, melee combat, you got to charge first. That is the mechanic for 40K. So what I thought we'd do is spend a few minutes talking about some tips and tricks, maybe even some failures, where I know we've all, had those experiences where we've charged in or failed a charge or something like that. So Steve, I'm going to start with you, and maybe just drop a really good experience that you had, a helpful tip, because we've got one of our viewers here, BW Commander, looking for advice. What should they be thinking about, or what do you normally think about, especially playing Dark Angels, right? There's some melee component there. What do you think about when trying to prepare for a charge and getting into melee?
Well, up to recently, I've been just let it loose and let it all hang out and go Leroy Jenkins style on the whole charging phase. Because I spend so much time building a list. I'm like, oh, these weapons are so powerful. I want to do there's so much shooting and there's so much nuance to the shooting. And you look at those keywords and you forget that those keywords also carry over to melee combat, lethal hits, you know, all that, like what do you call it? Precision. All those things can carry over to certain units in melee, but you forget, right? So I always have failed to line up my units appropriately and match them up against the appropriate opponent. Like I want to get my like beefy hardcore melee guys. I'm like, I'm going to attack your vehicle because I think it can kill it. And it's probably not the right approach. So I think you can take your chaff units, you're easily killed. They're probably going to die anyway. But think about what you can do as far as gumming up a vehicle. Like you could take I don't know, something big and horrible that would mow down your more expensive units that you can get the work out of. But you could take these cheap units and just bog them down. And your opponent may not think, oh, I was not planning on getting in that fight right now. And they lose a whole turn. I mean, you could cost your opponent a whole turn. It may cost you an entire unit, but that keeps them out of the fight for a little bit and lets you focus on something else.
Yeah.
So remembering stuff like that has been very helpful. And then those keywords, like you use those keywords, use those command points, look at what you have and play the strengths. And you use your heavy hitters to like mop up the things that are going to take objectives from you. Is very important. And I just forget about it. I'm like, oh, I want the swords. So let's go beat up on this thing.
I mean, I think the amount of things that I forget during a game, like it's insane. So there's, for BW Commander, our viewer, listener, there's just a lot to remember, especially as a new player. There's just so much that you're gonna try to do, and I would say take it one. Look at your units individually and make sure that you're focusing the melee heavy guys. I mean, that sounds crazy, maybe not, but not everything is a great fit for melee. Just because it has a melee weapon, a close combat weapon, or a chainsword doesn't necessarily mean it's the best thing to throw into melee combat. There's a lot of different factions that have really good abilities. I mean, orcs, for example, play orcs. They're really good in melee because they get multiple attacks, but it also depends because they're not going to have a high AP. So if you're going to go against something really heavily armored, the benefit of orcs is it's not going to be like, -3 AP on their attacks. The benefit of orcs is the volume. So you're looking at throwing 20 bodies, 40 bodies now with this new edition, and the new, not the new edition, the new codex. There's a lot of synergies that you could put in, tons and tons of models all into this big melee bunch. But if I just looked at the melee weapon profile, and I'm going up against something with maybe an invulnerable save, really good invulnerable save, or really good armor, high toughness, it can be very difficult to take out a unit like that unless I have a ton of models. I'm rolling lots of dice and then it's just a math game. Eventually, you're gonna fail one of those rolls, but it's not just looking at the weapon profile. You really have to think about the synergy of the army, and for a new player, that is a lot to consider, a lot to take
Whole
in.
lot.
So, Lee, I know you've had different armies, different chapters of Space Marines, as we discussed earlier. What would you say is probably your best tip on charging?
Yeah, I think so. When I started playing, I think I got caught up in the whole just try and kill as many things. Like I treated Warhammer like a team deathmatch, like how many bodies can hit the floor type thing. And then what I began to learn was the game is not won by killing or mowing down your enemies. That's fun, but the game is won by objectives. So that really changed how I looked at maybe charging. So for example, let's say there's an objective in the distance that I want to get to, but there is an army in between them, so they're not technically on the objective, but they're in between. So I'm here, they're there, and the objective's here. What I kind of learned was, like, if I roll a high on my charge phase, it gives me more ability to move. So if I can, instead of just charging into them, if I can charge round them and attack from behind, effectively it's putting me an inch closer to the objective that I want to gain. So that was something that I had to learn pretty early on, was that don't get caught up fighting the things, but try and get to the objective. So use your charge phase to get you closer to the objective. You may not get there in that turn, but by killing that army, if you kill them outright, you are then home free to kind of make that move or advance onto the objective and claim it. So I think I learned that pretty on, but it's obviously, if you can get round them and funnel them, you can't go through them. You've got to be able to get round them. But that was something that I learned, just through trial and error. And then also people going, "You sure you want to do that? Don't you want to be a little bit?" Like, no, yes, no, yes, I do. Yeah. But
That's the
what
other thing. Find yourself an opponent, right? Especially somebody who's played the game, who's willing to kind of guide you through. If you're just starting, find somebody, a buddy, or maybe someone at a Warhammer store that it's like, hey, I want to play this game. I don't know half of what I'm doing. So if you can point out some things, hey, why don't you think about moving it over here versus this, because it'll get you closer to the objective. That you got to have a really good friend to do that. But I think everybody has to learn at some point. And the difference between enjoying a game of Warhammer and really getting into the point where you're winning some games, I think comes from finding the nuance of these little turns. So what you just mentioned, getting on the other side of a unit to get closer to the objective, something that that the consolidation rule is that once you charge in, now you can move 3 inches closer from a consolidate standpoint. And that may seem like a throwaway rule, like, yeah, well, of course I want to get closer, and you just smash them all in there. But for BW Commander, think about when you charge in, you really just need to get one model within range of melee. And then thinking about like a blob of orc boys, my 20 orc boys, if you get one person in, well, they're effectively in melee range. And now if I couldn't get all the models in before, because I can consolidate, I get a free 3-inch pile in where I can move them all up closer. So if you have to make a 10 on your charge, but only one model can get there, well, you made your charge, but now you get 3 inches to move up closer and get into melee range. So again, little stuff like that, it's going to come with practice. It's just getting in more reps in. I hate to make that sound like we're all doing like some kind of workout plan, but if you want to not have the case of the feel bads, right, when you're playing against a friend or even a stranger at a store, these little rules and little nuances of the game will come. So Steve, I want to end with you, and then we'll move on to our next segment. But from the advantages of pile-in, I know you've had a lot of I guess lessons learned with going through and learning about the pile-in and consolidation moves.
Yeah, I mean, you can use it so much to your advantage. You can surround an opponent to where they don't really have an escape. Uh, all the while still being able to attack them. You can plug a hole in terrain. So if you were to charge in a unit, very similar to what Lee was talking about, looking at the objectives and stuff, but you could stop them from moving another unit through, so there's so much you can do as far as that goes. And then you got to remember you have like heroic interventions and things like that, which I never remember to use.
Yeah, I
So
always forget to use that.
but you can charge and pile in and make sure that unit is within range, which I think is like 6 inches or something like that, so that you can actually use that powerful advantage, if you wanted to.
Yeah.
So there's a whole lot of stuff like that but it comes with practice and failure, because I think I'm just like everybody else. Just smash and go, and you forget that's a pretty important. It's the final stage, because the last few turns are coming down to all that. So if you flub your charges early on, say the second, third turn, well, you're stuck, man. That you're kind of, the rest of your game is pretty much kind of stuck to what you just did.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it can shape the rest of it.
And I was just thinking one last tip. Depending on the army that our listener is playing, but if you have a heavy vehicle army, if you can charge with vehicles. It really depends. Sometimes your walkers will have lots of melee, abilities on them. But if you just got a regular, tank or truck or something, the charge and once you get into melee, it's like, what do you do with your hands? Like Ricky Bobby, like, I don't know what to do now because I can only hit you like with 3 melee attacks, and you get in there thinking, oh man, this tank's going to destroy you, and you get in and that's right, it's just a tank, so there's not a lot of melee here. So however, it is a bit of a Hail Mary depending on what unit you're charging with. But if you've got a vehicle of any kind, don't forget about the tank shock stratagem. That thing is deadly. If you've got something with a decent melee strength, a number of attacks and stuff on it, then you spend that stratagem when you charge in, and you get to look at the strength profile, the strength ability, the number for the melee weapon. So sometimes I'll do something with, like, one of my orc walkers will have like a strength of 14. And the stratagem is you take 14d6 and you roll, and every 5 up is a mortal wound, up to 5 mortal wounds. So when you're charging in with a vehicle and you have something halfway decent at melee, do not forget about tank shock. But if you do that and you get in there and you're going up against something that is very, very good in melee,
like a Hellbrute,
maybe, exactly, like a Hellbrute. Just be ready for the punch back is all I'm saying. So you might be able to take it out with tank shock, or you might not. So just something to think about with charging with vehicles.
How many CP is tank shock? Is it 2?
I believe it is 1.
Is it 1? Wow.
I think so. Yeah, I mean, either way, I think it's worth it, especially if you've got a high strength characteristic, because you're rolling tons of dice and every 5 up is a mortal wound, so meaning no saves. So pretty big deal. Yeah. Well, BW Commander, thank you so much for the question, and hopefully this is helpful to you. And for anyone else that has questions about maybe some tactics or tips, I wouldn't consider myself a master expert in this game, but I do play a whole lot. I know the rest of the crew, we play a lot. We talk about it a lot. We read about it. There's a lot of Warhammer knowledge amongst all of us in different respects. And we all play different armies. That's what's great. So the way that I play, I'm the only orc player in our group, but I don't play Dark Angels. I don't have near the amount of knowledge that Lee does on Space Marines with all of his chapters. So, I'm just giving you a hard time. But there's a lot of cool stuff in this game. There's a lot of nuance. So one of the reasons I love it so much is for like the individual tactics that come with charging. So great question. Keep them coming. If you have anything for us, again, contact at dadhammerstudios.com. All right. So now we're going to get into a bit of a new segment. It's somewhat of a trial. I thought it would be pretty cool. I'm going to start with our music, if it will cooperate here. It's just going to be something in the background that we can play. All right. We're going to do a choose your own adventure version of Warhammer 40,000. If you are old like us, you probably grew up reading the choose your own adventure books, which are effectively, you start the story with a summary, and then you are presented with a scenario. And do you take the left path or the right path? Do you jump over the moat or do you swim across? Do you fight the shark or do you spray it with shark repellent? That's a Batman call out. There's these choices, and then if you chose the shark repellent, go to page 47. So very similar here. We're going to see how this goes and see if you guys can survive. The only thing I ask Lee and Steve is no fighting over choices.
Oh, darn it.
You have to just roll off. All right, here we go. So this is the adventure of Inquisitor Ignatius. All right, welcome to the grim darkness of the far future where there is only war. You are Inquisitor Ignatius, tasked with rooting out heresy and preserving the Imperium of Man. Your latest assignments take you to the hive world of Gryton 4, where rumors of chaos cults are spreading like wildfire. Can you uncover the truth and stop the threat? Or will you fall prey to the machinations of chaos? Insert evil laughter. I'm not going to do it. All right, here we go. Thank you. Chapter 1, Arrival at Gryton 4. Your shuttle lands with a thud in the sprawling spaceport of Hive Primus. The air is thick with smog and the stench of industry. You are greeted by Arbites Officer Cregan, who looks visibly relieved to see you. Inquisitor, we've been expecting you. The governor's palace has been compromised, and chaos symbols were found scrawled on the walls. Do you head straight to the governor's palace to investigate, or gather information from the local populace first?
Oh.
Don't stress over the first choice, guys. It's not that.
No, let's go to the. Let's just get on with it. Let's go straight to the.
This is basically your charge phase. You're like, Leroy, check
Yeah,
All right, we'll go with Leroy's decision.
Okay, we'll head to Leroy's palace. Head straight to the governor's palace to investigate. Is that what your choice is?
That is the choice. Lock it in.
You die instantly. I'm just kidding. All right, you make your way to the governor's palace, a towering structure in the heart of Hive Primus. The walls are indeed defaced with symbols of chaos. You are greeted by a nervous-looking aide. Do you question the aide about recent events, or examine the chaos symbols closely for clues?
B. C. You shoot the aide because he's clearly an agent of chaos. No. I think
we should.
You're one of those guys that wrote in the choices, right?
I would investigate the symbols.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Steve, you good with that? Examining the chaos symbols? Okay.
Yes, I want to go crazy.
Right. So we're going to examine the chaos symbols closely for clues. As you study the symbols, you notice a pattern. They seem to form a map leading to an old, abandoned part of the hive. Do you follow the map to its destination immediately, Leroy Jenkins, or gather a squad of Arbites, not Arbites, to accompany you for safety?
We should take some help. I don't like, I think going to an abandoned spot, unprepared is less than wise. And we're all about growing and progressing.
As long as they look like RoboCop, then we can take the Arbites.
If they don't look like RoboCop, they got to stay home.
That's it.
Yeah. All right. So are you gathering a squad of Arbites to accompany you for safety?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So you can't just go solo. You always got to have somebody with you. Okay. Bring a friend. It's all right. All right. With a squad of Arbites that look like RoboCop in tow, you head to the location indicated by the map. the presence of armed guards makes you feel more confident. Do you order the RBDs to search the perimeter while you go inside, or lead the squad directly into the building?
I mean, we've gone Leroy Jenkins, so we might as well just run in there.
Yeah, let's go.
That's it. Let's do it.
Just going straight in?
Yeah.
Yes, let's go.
Have they brought like a little doggy with them as well? The RBT's doggy. Okay, yeah, we're going in. Send the dog.
What's the dog?
What's the dog's name, by the way?
Rex.
Rex.
Fido.
Perfect.
Snoopy.
No, Rex, Fido, Snoopy.
That's it.
Yeah. All right. So you're gonna lead the squad directly into the building.
This music's making me tense.
Yeah, you look tense. You need to relax, Lee.
I'm like, whew.
You chose poorly.
Yeah. All right, we're going to chapter 2, the deeper conspiracy. The path you chose has led you deeper into the tangled web of intrigue on Gryton 4. Each step uncovers new layers of mystery and danger. Do you feel like you're in danger?
Every day I wake up.
Yeah. Excellent. All right, so let me get my my affairs in order here. All right, we're gonna lead the squad directly into the building. Feeling confident, guys, going into this one?
Sure. What could
Feeling
happen?
good? Feeling good?
Get a face ripped off by a chaos monster. That's what could happen.
All right. Well, let's see what happens here. You lead the RBTs into the building. Suddenly, an explosion rocks the structure, and you're ambushed by cultists. Do you fight your way out and secure the area, or retreat and regroup to plan a better approach?
Let's fight our way out. See if we can capture one of those turkeys.
Fighting your way out. You're not gonna hit and run. No.
Nah.
Or you're gonna hit. You're gonna hit and run on your way out. All right. So you're gonna fight your way out. Is that what you're doing?
Yeah. Let's fight. Yeah.
Okay. You and the RBTs fight bravely, defeating the cultists and securing the building.
Woohoo!
You find a hidden passage leading deeper underground.
It's like the Temple of Doom.
Do you explore the passage immediately, or call for reinforcements and proceed carefully?
Well, there's nothing careful in the 41st millennium, Matt. I don't know. Should we slow it down a notch?
I mean, this music's making me want to run in. Let's just do this.
Let's just go.
Just do it, huh?
Just do it. Go on.
Okay. So you're exploring immediately. All right. So we're gonna see what happens here. You descend into the passage, finding a network of tunnels leading to the cult's main hideout. Do you launch a surprise attack from within, or gather intelligence before making a move?
Maybe we need to be smart now. So
probably good idea.
Yeah, let's gather some intelligence.
Yeah.
Gather some intelligence. Okay. Well, we will make that choice here. We'll see what's going to happen.
I thought you were going to say we would tune in next week for another episode of.
Well, you buried the lead. That's totally what I was going to do because we're out of time at this point. So tune in next week.
What did they find out?
You'll never know. And now, word from our sponsors, and cue to like Lucky Charms new marshmallow or something like that. All right, guys. So the next thing you're going to be doing is gathering an intelligence before making a move deeper into the hive premise. So very cool. All right. Well, that was fun, right? So short and sweet.
Oh, I love it.
Well, if any of our listeners thought that was entertaining, cringeworthy, whatever, I thought it was a cool idea. We could start. Maybe we'll spice it up next time if we get a lot of good feedback and people enjoy that. I will definitely be taking listener submissions. If you've got ideas for things that I can run the panel through, I think that would even be better. but I'm a D&D player also as well, so I may throw in an occasional curveball for you. So
does that mean we have to roll dice?
maybe
Ooh,
maybe virtual dice.
I've only got
Hey,
D6. I've not got
I've
any
got a
20s.
D20 sitting here on my desk, man.
There you go. Always have a D20 at the ready. That's the
Listen,
lesson.
Big one.
Whoa, that's a big one.
Wait, is that? Yeah, it is a 20.
Yeah,
It's life
came to party.
decisions.
Came to party.
That's right.
That was fun.
Well, yeah. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that, and our listeners enjoyed as well. We'll see what happens on the next episode. So stay tuned, and that will actually do it for this episode of the Dad Hammer Podcast. Thank you to the Chaplain, Medicae Steve. I am David the Warboss, and until next time, remember that your pile of potential boxes can double as terrain, especially if you have a whole lot of armies. Like I do, I basically got a fort that can double as terrain. Small fort. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time. See you.
See you soon.
Bye.